Robbo, I'm going to come to you now because Craig brought it up. The next question is for Liverpool. How does Alexander Isak fit into their tactics, fit into Arne Slot's 11? Walk us through how you see him fitting into the 11.
Well, if you've just paid 125 million for a player, you've got to play him in the position that he wants to play. So he would be the out-and-out centre-forward, I would say. They need more from Wirtz playing in behind him. He hasn't really got going so far. I would stick with Gakpo on the left-hand side and Salah on the right-hand side, and that midfielder McAllister and Gravenberch. But Isak will be the out-and-out striker. He's the player that can run in behind. He can hold up the play when he needs to. He can be clever with his movement. But is he the, finished product? Is he the player that everybody says he is at 125 million pounds? I'm not sure he is. We saw him at Real Sociedad on many, many occasions. Craig as well when we do La Liga. And you say, yeah, a good striker. He's got a little bit of pace. But you would never have said that in 3 years' time or two and a half years' time, he'd be going to Liverpool for 125 million pounds. He's still got a lot to prove, I would say.
So that begs the question, Jan. Ekitike comes in after that really good spell at Frankfurt, after his bad spell at PSG. He's looked lively. I mean, he didn't have a great game at the weekend, but both strikers, Gyökeres and him, were really isolated. But he's looked sharp early on, particularly in the Community Shield and the game against Bournemouth and so forth. Did you see him in Germany do anything else but play through the middle? Or has he got some flexibility there that Arne Slot can utilise?
Yes, he has, Craig, and it's a good question because Ekitike, he played that in Frankfurt as well, because when he had Marmoush there, he had to play differently. Remember, Eintracht Frankfurt last January lost Marmoush in January. They had to kind of adjust the play. I can see him play also a bit leftish. He can be there. I think we could see games where you play Isak and Ekitike. I can see them play together. But the funny thing is now, there's two things that I like to add, is that of all the new players in, the first one who adjusted most, I think is the 3 goals he got. I've seen 3 of his games live. I like his movements. I like how he has found his position in Liverpool straight away. That is point 1. And point 2, remember back in the days when Liverpool and Newcastle tried both to get Ekitike. And people thought that if Ekitike goes to Newcastle, Liverpool get Isak earlier. And now we find themselves in the same club. And if, boys, I'm not sure about you, but I would say those are the 2 strikers who are most similar in the top leagues, Ekitike and Isak, which is interesting. And I think that it talks a bit about the confidence of Liverpool, but also the confidence of Slot, that he feels he can manage them. I think he can, because he showed that last season. So I think that if you're gonna say someone else is the favorite to win the Premier League now, you have to be very early up in the morning, because you need to argue good.
I mean, it's interesting because it is a big call for Arne Slot, because, Gakpo, I like Gakpo. I think a lot of people like him. I think Slot, he's done a really good job on that left-hand side. He's not obviously an out-and-out winger like Salah on the other side. He likes to drift in. He's great at getting in at the back post for balls in, for headers and goal scoring at that back post. He's very adept at that. He's very physical. He can also drop back in the midfield and do a job there because of his physicality. So it is a big call for Arne Slot, because that's a facet of the team that's worked particularly well. I'm not suggesting Ekitike won't go out there and do a good job. He's a different type of player to Gakpo. He's more of a goal scorer. He's more of a front man. Gakpo's a little bit of a hybrid between the middle of the park and the wide position. So that's going to be a big call. Look, they say you can never have too many good players, but I think managing them sometimes and trying to shoehorn them into the team is the difficult part. And I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for Arne Slot this year than last year. Last year, it was just momentum, and maybe that was why towards the end of the season, the Champions League and the Premier League, they sort of fell off a cliff a little bit. They'd already done the hard work. They'd won the league, but their performances dipped. And I think that was potentially because a lot of the players had played a lot of games. So he maybe didn't have that problem last year in terms of rotating as much. He's going to have that to deal with. He's going to have more decisions to make this year on a weekly basis about who plays, who starts, and where they start. And that's a different type of headache, because he pretty much put that side in. The first 6 months of the season last year, when they were brilliant, he pretty much put the 11 out and went, right, lads, on you go. And they did a great job from this year with all the signings. It's a different headache.
And while he was able to put out that 11 fairly consistently last season. Injuries didn't have a significant impact in Liverpool's title run last season. Now, no manager just kind of relies on where we're going to be fit throughout. We are going to be able to call on the same 11 or same 15 or whatever it may be all season long. So I think Liverpool and Arne Slot have done a very good job in certainly bolstering the squad and giving significant option in every single position. Now, I for one, I don't see Ekitike drifting out to the left-hand side. Maybe he can go there and pick up a ball or two, but to start him out to the left, I don't see it. I think he was signed always with the intention of playing through the middle and more as support, more as an option for Alexander Isak, as Liverpool expected to get him earlier in the summer. But then all of a sudden, he just started the season like a house on fire. Yeah. And that's credit to the player himself. And that's, I guess, as a manager, those are the problems you want to have, where even your long-term prospect, the player who you expect is just going to come in and maybe be a bit part player for the first season, starts off in the way that he does. And now Slot really has a decision.
Well, and he sat at home. Sorry, and he sat at home, Alexander Ekitike. And, it's a bit like James Trafford at Manchester City. Just signed Donnarumma. OK, had a bad game against Tottenham with his feet. He did very well in the Brighton game. I know they lost. But he's gone back in there as the number one. They've just gone and blown that out the water by Donnarumma, so his chin's on the floor. And here you have a guy who's come in, looked lively, looked great, scored goals, and they spend the best part of 150 million on a striker, which I'm sure he was aware was going to happen, but it doesn't make it any easier, particularly when you've started the season as well as he has. And I'm sure Arne Slot's talked to him about his plans and what he's going to do, but plans get chucked out.
He should go on strike.
All right, let's not go on strike. But Jan, let me come to you on this one now, because both you and Shaka had Florian Wirtz to win Player of the Year when we got our early Premier League season predictions. And now there are lots of questions surrounding him. Are you surprised that he's struggling earlier on in Liverpool?
What about, first of all, in 2025, we have to define in the beginning. If you don't score in the first game, you're a flop. Florian Wirtz, that is how it is. When you come in as a big time player, you need time to adjust. I read a great interview with him in the German press where he talked about he loves to be at the club. He loves to be at the training ground. He loves to be a part of the Liverpool, the way Slot is planning for him. That takes time. You have Ekitike who goes straight in. Maybe easier for a striker, because if you get your goal, everybody is happy. Has Florian Wirtz looked like Florian Wirtz has done in Leverkusen? No, he hasn't. I think he was okay in the second half against Arsenal. He will float in, but I still, although I changed my Player of the Year because I was influenced by the power ranking of Xhaka today.
But you know not to trust those.
No, but Florian Wirtz, I think that of all the players they got in a longer perspective, talking 2-3 years down the road, he will maybe be one of the best and most important signings Liverpool have done.
Shaq, are you changing your mind, or are you sticking with Wirtz?
No, I've changed my mind.
Oh, how cool.
I told you.
And full disclosure,
that's what I meant.
My power rankings were based off of Jan's recommendation. So that's what happened. Now, listen.
You're changing your mind already?
No, just on Player of the Year. No, not whether he'll be a success this season. I think he grows into that position. I have little doubt that he kind of grows into that position for Liverpool.
But not enough to shine to become Player of the Year.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, I'm with Jan that over the next 2 or 3 years, Florian Wirtz will prove himself to be an outstanding acquisition. There's no doubt. And probably in 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's just as you look at this Liverpool team, as it develops, he'll contribute significantly, just not Player of the Year significantly.
Robbo, you had him, of course, in your 11. Do you have the similar faith that he will grow into life at Liverpool, but probably not necessarily to become Player of the Year?
Yeah, I think he's an exceptional player, and what he is very, very good at is playing in tight areas. Not all Liverpool players are good at playing in tight areas. They've got pace to run. Isak's a player that likes to run in behind. Salah I had a bit of a row with Rob Palmer at the weekend because he said he's a player that likes to get the ball to his feet. But again, Salah likes running in behind. It's his pace that causes so many problems. Now, when Liverpool play against teams that want to sit deep in the penalty box and not give too much space away, Florian Wirtz is the player that can open them up with clever 1-2s, great manipulation of the ball. That's what he did for Bayer Leverkusen. When teams wanted to sit deep, that's when he came to the fore, because that's when you have to break teams down. And he did that persistently. And I think he'll do it for Liverpool in those games where teams want to sit deep and make it difficult for them.
That was Robbo's weekly argument with Rob Palmer.
Robbo's all for the argument.
Him and Rob always have a little disagreement in the cup. It's very enjoyable, I have to say. I actually don't think the big concern here, and it is very early, I mean extremely early, but he's a superstar. And so people look at you when you're a superstar and you're such a big signing. I don't think there's any worries about what Florian Wirtz will do with the ball and contribute to Liverpool and pick those little passes out and those assists and those wonderful runs that we've seen him go on for Leverkusen. I think one of the questions for me is how is it going to, over the long term, affect the shape of the Liverpool midfield in terms of a defensive structure? And I think we saw at times in that first half against Arsenal, with Arsenal's easy possession, although they did very little with it, but that I think was down to personnel on the field because they had three very similar midfielders in Rice, Moreno and Zubamendi who can all sort of pass the ball. But their easy possession, I think, threw up a few questions about the balance in the Liverpool midfield. And I think that's probably a bigger, worry or concern's maybe not the right terminology, but a bigger question about how it's all going to work for Liverpool, because the last couple of years has been, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister, rock solid. Absolutely rock solid. And before that was Curtis Jones. Now the dynamic of that midfield three has changed because, yes, he'll work hard and yes, he's got a great attitude. But he isn't an out-and-out midfielder. He isn't the most physical player. It isn't a natural instinct for him. And so that automatically puts a little bit more pressure on the other midfielders. And I think that's more of a question for me rather than will he be the player to unlock a defence, which I think he's already proven.
Craig, don't you think that is an interesting discussion, because it's like you are two camps of spins. Because we saw the first game against Arsenal, they didn't concede so many chances, but the three other games they conceded a lot of chances. So there was, like, when the football discussion on different channels or people in and around the game, there was one direction saying that Van Dijk and Konate doesn't look that good, and then there was the other camp saying, yeah, but that's the defense problem is because of Wirtz, because he makes that balance that you were talking about, Craig. I think that is an interesting thing to follow into this season. I can see that's the only weakness of Liverpool, and we'll see. But I feel like there are two camps. So when people keep criticizing Van Dijk, then they will say, yeah, but that's because the midfield is not that good. So it's going to be interesting to follow that.
Well, Robbo, Arsenal at the weekend just lost to Liverpool, which was thanks to a fantastic strike from Szoboszlai. But still, we had a bit of a debate on the show with our Julian Laurent saying that he actually enjoyed the tactics that were employed by both sides in this team. Our Stevie Nicol rubbished that and said that was absolute nonsense because he was bored for the most part. How did you find the game? What did you make of Arsenal's approach?
Arsenal made it difficult for Liverpool that first half, so tactically, in terms of stopping Liverpool playing, silencing the crowd, making Liverpool not play at the pace they usually play at, and making Liverpool look very average. They did that well with their closing down. They always went with the front two at times and made it difficult. But as I always said, when they bought Zubimendi, that he's a player that won't pick a forward pass. They hit one in behind for Madueke, which was a good one, where Madueke beat Kirkes for pace. But in the main, every time the ball comes to Zubimendi, he will pass it backwards or square. And when Declan Rice goes deep, which he did in that game, he passed it backwards and square. He's much better when he's a more dynamic player. Moreno, likewise, he's not a player that you think is going to pick out a 30, 40-yard pass. The only player that really, I thought, looked as though he was exciting was Madueke, who the Arsenal crowd didn't want when he was signed. He looks as though he had a bit of pace to go past Zirkic in that first Kirkic in that first half. But overall, I thought they were a little bit scared of the game. They were clear that they wanted to stop Liverpool playing, but they didn't have the next step to cause Liverpool too many problems.
just didn't have the guile for all their possession in the first half, or their gain of control, which they had in the first 45. They didn't, and I agree, Madueke looked sharp, and he had Kerkez at full pelt on several occasions. I mean, Martinelli on the other side was a non-event, and he and that's Stevie and I talked about it. He should have been the one that Arsenal were isolating, because he's against Szoboszlai, experienced player, international footballer, captain of his country, but he ain't a right back. And Martinelli's supposed to be one of the quickest wide players, most direct wide players in the game, and yet he saw very little of the ball. It just didn't make any sense, and I do feel that and Arne Slot made the move first with his substitutions, and I actually felt it was Arsenal that should have made the substitutions earlier, because the game was getting away from them before he brought on Eze. It was already getting away from him. I felt he should have moved a little bit earlier. But in the first half, the fact that they couldn't, when they did penetrate the Liverpool midfield, they really didn't have anything with any guile or quality into. And Gyökeres again got very little service, and it's not been a good look on him, Jan.
And I think that the big discussion about Arsenal is the big thing. You can see what Arteta tries to do. You can see that he looks for a percentage here, 1% here, 1% to improve his team. I think the big discussion is, yes, if you're data-driven, you will say that throw-ins are very important because so many goals will score. Set pieces are important, so. Take your time, that's good for our away game, and so on. Yes, the kickoff is just kicked out in the corner so you can start the pressure. Yes, I know PSG did the same in the Champions League, but they have other attributes. The thing that I think is interesting with Arsenal is that will that be a cost of what has made Arsenal so good the last 2-3 seasons? And they have been good. They've been second 3 times in a row. They've been very close to do that. I'm just a bit afraid that Arsenal, by doing all this stuff, that they try to improve all these areas, the small things here, the small things there, which is the right approach to so. But I'm afraid that they will lose what Arsenal has done so well. The quick transition, going forward, going for it, 1 against 1. Saka, Ødegaard, get in. I'm not sure about that strategy.
Well, he's got to get his hamstrings right, isn't he, Saka?
Yeah, I take Jan's point.
That's a worry.
Saka certainly is a huge miss for Arsenal. But in all honesty, this is what Arteta has done against the big teams in the Premier League for the last couple of seasons. And he's got an outstanding record in that regard. Where it's come unstuck for Arsenal is, I think they've picked up just too many draws, maybe relying on set pieces, and now the addition of Gyökeres maybe gives them that little nudge that they need in terms of those points dropped against teams lower down in the league. But certainly, in terms of the Liverpools, the Manchester Cities of this league, this is what I've come to expect from Arteta. This is nothing different. The only difference was Szoboszlai stepping up in the manner that he did. But this has been Arsenal's approach pretty consistently for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it's been unsuccessful. Yeah. It's been unsuccessful.
No, well, it's successful in league, but not in the individual games.
But one second, it's been unsuccessful, and we can butter this up anyway. I'm data-driven. Who wins the Premier League? Who finishes second? That's the only data I care about. One second, Jan. We can butter. If Mikel Merino, Declan Rice and Zubimendi play and Arsenal win, nobody cares. Nobody bats an eyelid. If Martinelli doesn't play well and Arsenal win, nobody bats an eyelid. Right? The problem here is, and we can go round the houses about who plays and set pieces, the bottom line here is Arsenal Football Club have given Mikel Arteta what he wants to win the league and to succeed. Now, it's his choice what he does with it. If he wants to play Eze, fine. If he doesn't want to play Eze, if he wants to play 3 big guys in the midfield, I don't care. That's what he's going to be judged on. He has got the tools now. There's no excuses. He has the tools to do this job. So Mikel Arteta is a man that's under pressure. He can't go and say, I don't have the squad. I don't have the backup for Saka. I don't have a backup on the left-hand side. I don't have extra defenders. Because he's got absolutely everything he wanted, and he wanted Gyökeres. He's got everything he wanted to win this league, and that is the crux of where he is at.
And Craig, that's what I want to ask, and I think this is an interesting discussion because, to your point, Shaka, that's what I mean. I understand when you go to Manchester City. I understand when you go to Anfield. it's a main thing not to let them win. That's fair. You don't want to give 3. We share the points. We 1 point each. We are okay. But I'm just wondering if you're going to win the league, you have to risk something. You have to risk, and you can have the chance then when you play against the weaker teams. Sometimes if you rely on the set pieces you were talking about, Shaka. I was at St James's Park. I saw an intense game. I saw Newcastle also with 10 players. Giants. They all look like Norwegian Vikings. They were the tallest people in the world. They were pushing Liverpool. In the 96th minute, Arne Slot put on Elliott and Rio. He didn't go there to secure that point. He went for it with 2 small players came in. They won 3-2. I'm not saying that he could have lost. He could have lost that game. He could have lost the set pieces on 2-2. Newcastle wanted to win the game. But I'm just wondering, where is the balance between balance thing? Where is the data-driven things compared with you have to risk to win? That's my question.